this series called LO Lowdown is something that I am extremely excited about. We have, as you can imagine, some phenomenal loan officers, but more importantly, phenomenal people here at Caliber. And what I'm most excited about in this series is for you to get to know them, get to know how they got started in their mortgage banking careers, get to know what makes them so successful, what are some of the tips and tricks that they deploy that have helped them become some of the best loan officers, not only here at Caliber, but in our industry. And what's so exciting is they want to share this information with you. They want to help others grow their business and become successful in our great industry. And I have just the phenomenal privilege of sitting down and being able to ask these questions to these phenomenal people. And so it's a great series. So I'm very, very excited to share this series with you, LO Lowdown. So with that said, so I'm going to, take you down to these fun questions here. And, so the first one, when you think about it, so this is like the basics. So how long have you been doing what you're doing in the mortgage business, and how did you get in? What was your first industry job? How did you get into this crazy business?
That's good. Yeah, I started in 1993, so just my 27th year. So I've been doing it a while. And I started as an intern. So I went to the University of Maryland, had a finance and management double major, but they don't talk about, selling money or sales or banking. And so there's a guy in my fraternity who, knew a guy, and I got the internship, and I was like, wow, this is kind of neat. And so, yeah, I started as an intern. It's the only job I've ever had. I've never had a real job. So it kind of helps that it's the way I've always lived.
Wow, that's it. So the internship, was it just kind of doing anything and anything in the office, or was it specific, like in an area of mortgage banking?
Yeah, it was a mortgage office, and back then, loan officer jobs, they were paper boys. They'd go print rate sheets and run around to real estate offices and drop rate sheets off, and right then computers were just starting to come out. And since I was college and smart, and I was like, why are you guys handwriting your rates on this rate sheet and then shoving it through the copy machine? Why don't we make it on WordPerfect or Quattro Pro, some of those good old programs? Why don't we make it look real sharp? And they're like, wow. And then let's put like a design in there, and like, oh, we have the best rate sheets. We're going to do the most business. And the business was really stupid and simple back then, where sometimes just the best looking rate sheet ended up getting the business. But
yeah,
it was really I come in and do rate sheets on Fridays, and then we'd come in and just, kind of mop up files and do like accounting for appraisal checks. And it was a really manual paper business back then.
Oh, so fascinating. I mean, it's just, again, how you just stumble into it and look around, and I can just see the seasoned team of loan officers when the intern comes in with the WordPerfect rate sheet. I mean, and you're looking around going, geez, that's awesome. So now, so you have a team, right? So how are you structured how is Team Washburn structured? How many people? What does that look like? Are you the sole lead generator, or does the entire team generate leads?
Right now, with how busy we are, it's pretty much me. I wouldn't be where I am without Jeff Morelli. He's been my assistant for 20 years. So Jeff and I have kind of partnered up for about 20 years, and he kind of, once I bring the loan in, he kind of runs the show from there. We've just been a branch manager. I've hired people and had them as my assistant a while and spun them out. And so there's actually 2 COE loan officers that work for Caliber that used to be my assistant, Matt O'Connor and Andrea Trout. And but right now, Charlie Asmar is my third team. So it's me, Jeff, and Charlie. And Charlie's my young guy. He's kicking butt and working late hours, and he's starting to figure out the business and doing a great job. So yeah, we usually go, they both bring in loans, but primarily me, and they're helping me get the volume through right now.
Sure. Now, one of the things, people behind your back in a good way, whenever we talk about the relationship between an originator and operations, inevitably, it doesn't matter where I am, somebody brings up Chris Washburn and the relationship that you have with operations, both in terms of kind of workflow, but just I guess, partnership. I mean, how would you describe that? Because it's legendary. I
Yeah.
just have to say.
Well, it kind of goes into how to, like, years ago we kind of thought, how can we do the most volume and what's the most efficient way to do it, and now Caliber's kind of, I don't want to say come to the realization, but they're doing the same thing now with DTU. So we kind of embraced DTU years ago, where we said, hey, look, up front, if we can get all the documents, if we can underwrite the file ourselves with our own brains, and make sure when we push this ball down this hill, it's going to roll the way we want it to roll, and everything's going to come in the way we plan it to, we'll be able to do a lot of business. We'll be able to know once the loan goes, we know what the conditions are. We can focus on the next loan. When it comes out of underwriting, we already have that stuff. And so we obviously need ops, love ops. But if we do our job right, they don't need to do much to get a loan, out the door.
Right. So it's just really doing that pre-underwrite. I mean, which is, back to your point, when you started in the business, there was no other way, right? I mean, if you turn a loan in that didn't, already have that done, you were physical in an office, and I remember things getting thrown at me for doing that. You learn the hard way. So that it's that simple, right? And everyone tries to make it overly complex, but it's turning a good loan complete, matches the guidelines, processing and underwriter are able to do what they do in an expedient manner, and that's the secret right there.
Yeah. It's really no. People ask me all the time, how do you do that much? I'm like, well, because my loans, I do tough loans too, but before they leave my desk, I kind of know, what's going to happen, and I've already prepared the borrowers, and I'm already getting the stuff before I even get the. It's hard.
So how do you, in terms of your source of business, how much of it is realtor? How much of it is builder? Obviously you've past referral clients, but in terms of new business, what does that look like?
Yeah, I used to work with builders a little bit more. Don't have any builders right now. Occasionally in DC, there's developers who, have a 10-unit condo project I'll get onto, but the market's so busy that, they're not offering seller concessions. So buyers like, well, why use your in-house? Because, I can use anybody I want. So kind of staying away from builder, but most of it's, realtor referred. And I should have probably looked at the numbers, but maybe if I had to guess, 25% previous customer, another 10% previous customer referrals, and then the rest, just new business from realtors and people like that.
Gotcha. So when you think about your team structure, working with ops, other than H2O, is there an element of technology, whether software or hardware, that you couldn't live without?
Now, again, I'm going to be pretty boring about this. I don't pay for business. I don't use Zillow. I don't do any of that stuff. I looked at Salesforce for a minute because, guys used to work here, they loved it, but it seemed like that became a full-time job, and AMP does a great job. I mean, AMP communicates to all my previous customers, and I just need them to not forget about me. I don't need them to do anything cool or go to my parties or anything. Yeah. And so AMP does a great job, and we use Trello a little bit to help track customers up front, but once they're under contract, from then on, it's pretty much AMP.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really. If I had more time, maybe I'd look into some of these programs that are out there. But my guess is just, it's just something that's AMP-like that maybe just is a little easier.
Yeah. Well, I think Trello's similar, and you're not alone. We heard from Christine earlier today, Smart Sheets, right? Which is just it's an online tracking tool, right? Sometimes the simplicity of things is the key. So when you think about, obviously no one expected a year like this, but when you think of the future, you've been doing this, back, you said 93, right? So yep. Going all the way back then, obviously you hear the stories, people are like, oh, customers can self-originate their loans in the future. We've been hearing that for years. Right. And what you do though, building your relationship in the local market with a real estate agent, with your past customers who know who you are, you have a brand in and of itself. Right. How do you see, in terms of when you think 5 or 10 years out, what changes do you see to that, if any? And then more importantly, what do you need, or what, if you were running, the company, what would be the changes that you would be investing in now to support what you think will eventually be needed to keep, you able to grow your business as you've been able to do?
All right. Yeah. I mean, I still think, and who knows, it could change, but I still think that a lead from a realtor saying, hey, just give my guy or gal a call and compare it to your bank, whatever. And as long as we're close, a lot of times that's enough to get you over the finish line. And we have a sales job, so when we talk to people, we have to show them how we can provide value, how we can help get their contract ratified, show them lots of options, and be there on nights and weekends when most people don't find houses between 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Yeah. And despite technology and everything else, you still need people to be able to do those things, and technology can't. And so unless everybody goes to buying houses between 9 and 5, and internet lenders can keep their warehouses staffed during that time, I think we're gonna still be in business. And as far as a company, continue to do what Caliber's done. Cut overhead. Figure out faster ways to do things. How can we be more efficient? And but compared to other lenders out there that probably are asking these same questions, and some of my good competition here in DC, the internet lenders of the world, they might have a little bit advantage in cost, but to be able to get a relationship with a realtor and get that realtor referral, I think it's going to be too much. And as long as our rates can be close, somebody will go with a local lender, even for an 1/8 or 1/4% higher than an internet lender. And maybe these for slam dunks go away, and that goes to the internet. But right now the internet's full too. Like all those internet lenders, I'm getting people calling me back, and I'm telling them I'm kind of busy too. But there's only so much that can be done. So I think that things will be like this. We just have to continue to get faster. We can get loans done in 2 weeks pretty easily here. H2O is awesome, and obviously that has to do with my team as well. But everything's really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. The relationship aspect has been part of our business since the very beginning. And to your point, the customer wants to be able to have when they have an issue, when they have a question, and the real estate agent, the builder, anyone, they want certainty, right? They want to know that deal is going to have somebody that'll push it through, work it. I think to your point, and it matches up where when I push on the company side it's really about the back end, right? We have to be able, how do we become more efficient? How do we make that, you're going to have your relationship with the customer. How do we minimize the information we need? How do we maximize the statusing that we provide? But more importantly, how do we move that loan as expeditiously through? And there's a lot of opportunity there. And rather than to worry about how do we make the next best interface up front, make it easier for the customer once you develop the business, and then that'll just keep it going. If you could go out today and sell on your purchase transactions, right, I guarantee that everyone's going to get done in 14 days or 12 days because we had the most efficient system, right? I mean, that's the best form of business development you could ever have.
Right.
And, we need to continue to, and we're seeing that, right? You've probably followed Rocket as they've done their IPO. Is great as I think they've got a great process for the refi, but where they struggle is trying to develop business retail wise, out of with a call center originator, regardless of where they live, because they're not there in the market to build the relationships. So
right. Yeah.
I think it's the simplicity of it tends to get lost on a lot of these things of how easy I guess we should say how we try to over complexify some of these things. So this is an interesting question for you. So you've undoubtedly heard plenty of advice from people, both as you started off and even now probably. What's the piece of advice that other loan officers give you that you absolutely disagree with?
It's what drives me crazy is when I hear a loan officer say, my job's to bring in the loan. You want me selling, right? I don't, shouldn't be having to process loans or calling conditions, or that's not my job to know the guidelines. You guys figure it out. That drives me nuts. So yeah, anybody who and it's just difference in mentality, I guess. But I guarantee you go to a realtor, you want a smooth salesperson whose loans don't settle on time, or they blame somebody else when it doesn't go right, or do you want somebody who owns it from day one all the way through? They're going to want the person who owns it, the person who, hey, it's my fault this happened, not somebody else's fault this happened. And so, so absolutely, it's loan officers who just want to do the easy selling and just want to make it rain, but don't want to get their hands dirty and know how to get it done. There's plenty of people that do great that way, but that's just something that bugs me.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. What about, has there ever been a time as you went from intern to originating to obviously top producer now, where there was something that either you learned on your own or figured out that just was that reflection moment where you just saw your business just take off, right? Went from being good to great. Was there anything, or was there that type of moment?
Yeah, it was hiring an assistant. It was I was getting to a point where I was busy. My realtors, I could see that I could get realtors to get me more realtors, and so I could see I could really grow if I could get an extra mouth because I only have one. And so getting that assistant and delegating to them some of the tasks and be able to provide even better service than I was before, that really helped. And so I had a couple, and then I ran into, like I said, Jeff Borelli, who's been with me now for 20 years, and so Jeff and I have 2003 we closing 100 loans a month, and
Wow.
so yeah, we've done it for a while, and Jeff's great, and he really helps. And then the other assistants we've brought along, a couple of them work for other companies now, but there are a couple that are here, which is nice. And now Charlie's fantastic. So anybody who's looking to grow, you need to know that it'll make you a little bit nervous because now you're responsible for somebody else's pay. And
Yeah.
so you have to be the right person who wants that responsibility and wants to grow. There's no sense getting an assistant if you don't want to work harder than you did before. If you want an assistant so you can work less, that's not
That doesn't work. Yeah.
so.
What about mentors? Have you had mentors as you've been through the business? Has there been multiple mentors or one mentor?
Yeah, there's been a couple. Luckily, I've worked for pretty good companies who've had smart people, and probably the number one would be a guy who actually hired Dan and Stacey. Dan and I have worked together for since I've been in the business. So we've been in the same companies all the way throughout. So Dan's certainly a mentor, and I appreciate all Dan's done. But the guy who hired both of us is a guy named Mike Twig.
Yeah, I know Mike. Yeah.
Mike. Okay, so Mike's great, and he's retired now. He lives near me, and I see him probably once a month. But his philosophy was, hire young people right out of college and give them a long runway so they can kind of ramp up and figure it out. And I still use this today. His big sale was, you only need to do 3 things to be a good mortgage banker. And the first thing was, be honest. And I'm like, well, that seems pretty easy. I'm not a honest person. I can handle that. But then you see, as a manager, you see a loan officer come in with a problem. And I'm like, what's the problem? Well, there was this issue with this bank, and I was trying to fix it. And I didn't tell anybody. And then now it's settling, and now everybody's going crazy. Like, why weren't you honest with them up front and said, hey, this is a problem? Because if you would have told them up front, they would help you fix it, and you wouldn't have this last minute problem. Or you get loans from other lenders where, you can tell all along the lender's like, oh yeah, no problem. And there's a huge problem. And the problem is his income doesn't really qualify. And so being honest actually is really hard sometimes, especially if you're scared of conflict or scared of doing that. But being honest, that's number one. Number two is return your phone calls, and nowadays it's emails. So return those promptly. Realtors want to work with people who get back to them right away, and they, when they see that you have energy and you're on it right away when they call you, that's who they're going to want to work with. That's who I'd want to work with. I wouldn't want to work with somebody who, hey, I'm too busy, or hey, I'm going to get you back tomorrow, or whatever. So return your phone calls. Again, that's easy as can be, but people struggle with it. And then the last thing, is just work hard. So working hard is easy to say, but it's hard to do. And as you get successful, it's easy to get distracted, I guess look away or lose your focus. And working hard. Again, realtors love people who work hard, and they can see it when that's who they're going to want to work with. So outworking your competition is always better than a sharp rate or giving out
Yeah. So I'm sure you do this often, but when you do see Twig, you've got to tell him that his 3 rules, right? Be honest, pick up your phone or take the call, and work hard are still. I mean, he's think of the great mortgage bankers, yourself, Dan. There's plenty others. I guarantee you, and I'm not as close to Mike. I've met him a number of times years ago. That's worth so much more than he ever earned in his career, was the fact that he's been able to impart that wisdom and see you be so successful. So make sure you tell him if you don't. But those are the great 3 things. And I love the honest part I love your analogy, because I think a lot of people hear honest. Well, yeah, I'm honest. I pay my taxes or whatever else. But honesty gets really down to the road when when you're looking at that customer or that realtor, when you don't want to say no. No one wants to say no.
Right.
But I love your example of bringing, illuminating what honesty really means. And I think if people really step back and see it in that light, that's important.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a couple of just fun ones for you. So what's your hobby outside of mortgage banking, in the 8 minutes a week when you don't have family or mortgage banking?
Yeah, so let's see. If it's not family, I have a boat. I like boating. I like fishing, and I like camping. I like the outdoors. So usually it's something outdoorsy is what I like. Biking. I'm gonna hopefully go on a nice bike ride this weekend. So
all right. Road bike or mountain bike?
road bike. Yeah.
Road bike. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. What are you reading right now? Any books?
Just got it. Started to read it a couple days ago. How to Lead by David Rubenstein. It's I don't know if you've heard it yet. It just came out, but I'm going to hopefully get into it this weekend, where he's interviewed Bezos and Oprah and Bill Gates and a bunch of people, and I think Warren Buffett's in there too, on how they got successful. And so I always like hearing stories like that, especially if it's somebody who's kind of pulled themselves up and just worked hard through it. It kind of inspires me.
Yeah, that's great. What if you weren't an originator, had that fraternity brother who knew someone who knew someone who knew someone referred you, and you were an intern, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
So, yeah, when I was in college, I was going to be a stockbroker, and I'll be a stockbroker, and then intern, and here I am. If you take this personality test, like in high school or in college, like, hey, what do you think you'd be successful at? It was always like a park ranger or something. So I think I'll be like a stockbroker in the national park somewhere, maybe.
There you go. Okay, what was your first paying job? What was your first paying job?
First paying job was a paperboy. So getting up early, started when I was 10, and then restaurant jobs probably really helped my career. And I ran a restaurant in college for a little while, and so anybody who's worked a restaurant knows you got to multitask, you got to be good with different kinds of people, you got to be sharp, and so but paperboy is my first one, and it probably started my clock of getting up in the 4s every day, because that's
So you were morning paper versus afternoon.
Morning
paper. Yeah. As a former morning paper boy myself, that's the real work. Now the question, were you able to throw the paper, put it into a box, or did you have to put it in the front door?
Every customer is different. It was really kind of, looking back, there was child labor laws being broken everywhere. They dumped the papers, and I'd have to pay myself for an extra paper, because there was always one paper that would be ruined. And then I used to take, I don't know how my neighbors put up with me, but I used to take a metal shopping cart that we stole from a shopping, from a grocery store, and we all the way down the street, making a ton of noise. And some people, we would just chuck it up. Some people would want it in their door. But the worst part was then the paper boy had to go collect. And where I grew up, people didn't always pay necessarily. And so I'd have to shake them down. I'm this little paper boy, knocking on the door. I see them on TV. They act like they aren't there. And of course I had to pay my route master. And so it was just unusual. But fortunately there's no more paper boys. Everybody just chucks it out of the car.
I know. Yeah. So I'm gonna be so anxious to see how all these interviews go. But so I was a paper boy. Christine, her first job was a paper boy. If we see this as a trend, we now know what's happening. That's awesome. Okay, final is, how do you handle stress?
If you don't like stress or don't know how to deal with stress, it's probably not the right job for you, because it's stressful. And I like stress because it gets me going. It gives me focus and gets me out the door. And so I appreciate it. I thrive with it. I enjoy it. And I know some people don't. If this wasn't a stressful job or you didn't have responsibility, then a lot more people would do it, and probably a lot more people would be successful. But because of how hard it is and the stress that I guess comes from it, you kind of have to deal with it and enjoy it in order to be successful.
Yeah. No, and just as an observation, you handle it. I've been part of a number of really tough deals that you've had to work through, or issues, and you have a very calming approach to it, which I think helps to diffuse. Mm-hmm. So, well, Chris, I got to tell you, the fact that you take the time, first of all, is so tremendous, and as a company, people like you are who this company is, and you formed this company, and I just got to tell you that your imprint is everywhere, and I know that this will live on, these kind of pieces of feedback for others that are out there, whether they're in a little past the intern or the intern, give them hope and show how they can be successful, because it's a fantastic story, and we really appreciate it, and are just so glad that you take the time.
No problem. Thanks for asking, and whatever I can do, just let me know.
Thank you for tuning in to the Home Connection podcast from Caliber Home Loans. Please see the show notes for links to topics discussed in this episode, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.